The knock came after midnight, sharp and desperate, the kind of sound that slices through sleep and settles straight into your chest. I stood in my small Ohio apartment hallway, heart pounding, knowing before I opened the door that whatever waited on the other side would change something I could never put back the same. Grief has a sound, and that night it knocked on my door with shaking hands and nowhere else to go. Before the story pulls you any deeper, take a moment right now. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet power of showing up for someone when the world has fallen apart, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this matter because people like this exist. Her name was Margaret Collins, my boss for nearly 6 years, a woman known in our Chicago-based company for her composure, her clear eyes, and the way she carried responsibility like it was stitched into her spine. I was just Nathan Reed, a project coordinator who stayed late, took on extra tasks, and kept his head down after a divorce that hollowed him out. Everyone at work knew Margaret as the woman who never wavered, never leaned, never asked, until her husband Thomas died suddenly of a stroke on a business trip to Denver, leaving behind a quiet house and a grief too heavy for daylight hours. When I opened the door, she stood there wrapped in a dark coat that looked too thin for the winter air, her hair undone, her face pale and unguarded in a way I had never seen. There were no words exchanged, none needed. Grief had already spoken for her. I stepped aside, and she walked in, carrying loss like a storm cloud that filled every corner of my home. That was the first challenge, learning how to be present without crossing lines, how to offer warmth without promise, how to hold space for pain that wasn't mine but was suddenly my responsibility too. Margaret sat on the edge of my couch, hands clasped tightly, as if letting go would cause her to fall apart completely. I made tea I knew she wouldn't drink and sat across from her, the silence stretching, breathing between us. The world had taught me how to fix problems, meet deadlines, and smooth conflicts, but it had never taught me how to sit with someone whose life had split in two. I struggled with my own fear, the fear of being misunderstood, the fear of wanting to help and somehow making it worse, the fear of what this moment might mean tomorrow when the sun rose and we were boss and employee again. The night unfolded slowly, not in actions but in shared stillness. Margaret's shoulders shook as the reality of widowhood pressed down on her, and I realized that grief is loneliest when it first arrives. Friends and family rush in during the day, but at night, when the house echoes and memories grow teeth, loneliness becomes unbearable. She did not come seeking something improper. She came seeking proof that the world had not emptied itself of human warmth. Understanding that was my second challenge, separating assumption from truth, choosing compassion over suspicion. Hours passed. Outside, snow began to fall, softening the city, muting its edges. Inside, Margaret's breathing slowed, exhaustion finally overtaking sorrow. She slept sitting upright, coat still on, like someone afraid to fully settle into a reality she hadn't chosen. I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about how easily life rearranges itself without permission. I thought about my own losses, my failed marriage, the nights I wished someone would knock on my door just to remind me I wasn't invisible. In that quiet realization, something inside me shifted from fear to purpose. Morning light changed everything. Margaret woke with embarrassment clouding her features, grief now layered with self-reproach. I made breakfast we barely touched and spoke carefully about boundaries, about respect, about the need to protect both her dignity and my job. It wasn't easy. Grief blurs lines, and power dynamics complicate compassion. But honesty became our bridge. We agreed to treat the night as what it was, a human moment in an inhuman storm. At work, whispers followed her return. People notice when strong women bend. I watched Margaret navigate meetings with swollen eyes and steady hands, and I felt a quiet pride in her resilience. Yet the challenges were far from over. HR policies loomed, unspoken questions lingered, and I wrestled with my own emotions. I admired her strength, her vulnerability, the courage it took to keep going. I had to confront a truth that unsettled me, that caring deeply does not always mean wanting more, and sometimes love looks like restraint. Weeks turned into months. Margaret sought counseling, leaned on her church community, and slowly rebuilt routines that grief had shattered. I remained steady but distant, offering support only when asked. guarding both of us from misinterpretation. That distance was hard. There were moments I wanted to reach out, to say I understood more than she knew, but I learned that growth sometimes requires stepping back, trusting someone to find their own footing. The real change came quietly, on an ordinary afternoon when Margaret called me into her office, not with authority but with gratitude. She acknowledged the night, the safety, the respect, and the way it had given her enough strength to face the next morning. She told me that kindness without expectation had saved her from a darker place. That was when I understood that some moments are not meant to be repeated or deepened, they are meant to exist once and echo forever. Before this story reaches its final breath, I want to ask something from you. Please pause and leave a comment right now, even a single word, about what kindness means to you. Your voice matters more than you realize. Life moved forward. Margaret eventually stepped down from her role, choosing a quieter position in a different city, closer to her sister in Michigan. On her last day, the office buzzed with farewell wishes, but there was a calm peace about her I had never seen before. She hugged me briefly, professionally, yet with a depth that needed no explanation. In that moment, I felt lighter, healed in ways I hadn't known I needed. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that being there for someone can change both lives forever, please like, share, and engage with this video. Your support keeps stories of quiet compassion alive, and you never know who might need to hear this tonight. That knock at my door did not lead to scandal or regret. It led to understanding, to boundaries strengthened by empathy, to two broken people discovering that sometimes the most powerful form of love is simply being present and choosing to do what is right when it would be easier to do nothing at all.